Xbox and its wonder years. Now, I will say this. So, Xbox in its wonder years, Xbox got full throttle Game Pass.
They
Games
doubled
catalog
down.
offerings instead of just their own day one releases. They got other publishers and devs in on their game releases for
Yeah.
day one.
This is
Silk
when they
Song came to
yeah.
Game Pass day one. Certain
Yeah.
games that hey, you had to pay to play on PlayStation. Xbox like, hey, you already here, baby. We got you. I'm gonna say this right now. PlayStation does kind of spread itself with different devices. It's VR, the Portal, and all this revisioning and all that. Xbox said, hey, we're gonna keep it simple. And one thing I do love about them, they fucking controller offerings. PlayStation limited edition controllers will have you looking like, yo, was this some 5-year-old doing arts and crafts that slapped some shit on him? And then you look at Xbox controllers, that Doom controller, the Forza controller, the Starfield controller. It just, the grip, the texture grip, the designs. And then hell, if you don't want to buy their limited edition, they say, hey, design your own and
Yeah,
we'll
they
ship it
do.
to you.
Mm-hmm.
Design your own and we'll ship it to you. But as always, we're going to go with the first party offerings. Halo Infinite, supposed to be a launch title. It got delayed. Now, I played every Halo except for the RTS ones. Halo Infinite was another game. It was a bad Halo game, but it wasn't a bad game. I don't know if you can, read between the lines or break that down. It was a bad Halo game. And my whole thing was the same thing I said about the Gears 5. Halo did not need to be open world. Everything don't need to be open world to solve its problem. They put you in this big dumbass world to roam around and, shoot up everything, which was fun. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I did play it, have fun. It was okay. Games like Starfield came out. Microsoft Flight Simulator, Forza Horizon 5. These are some of the bigger titles that came out pushing Xbox, pushing Game Pass, and them doubling down on saying, hey, they also, from their past generation, they made a lot of acquisitions that started to churn out console generation. The Doom, Starfields, and others. They started to push a little bit more, and it seems like all the years of them acquiring all those companies, all right, that fruit was showing. Game Pass became Microsoft's core and primary identity, which I don't know why. And like I stated before, FPS boost added for older games up to 120 FPS. Quick resume improved, and I believe they also upgraded it. They added more games you can do, because I believe when it first came out, I think it was either 4 or 8, but now it's up to like 12. 12 games that you can bounce simultaneously back and forth instantaneously. They did push harder and more. They purchased Bethesda in 22. Key releases on Game Pass, High on Life, Grounded full release came out. Xbox this generation also the early access, which is a big thing that happens on Steam, but now Xbox does it. That's another thing PlayStation really does not do or tinker around it, but I think they do now more on a case-by-case basis. Prime example would be Power. I guess they figure we can't sit there and let them have all this fun. Games as Pentiment, Dust Falls came out, but there were also some duds. Microsoft pushed for more, how can I put this? It wasn't more of sales that they cared for. It was more user engagement. We'll go with that. Game Pass had eventually surpassed million subscribers. The Series S became one of the highest selling consoles in multiple regions due to its price, but I'm gonna give a little controversy, and Trace, you can look this up. There have been reports and interviews that people feel due to the Series S, certain games are held back. And I'm gonna touch on this because I had, like I said, Baldur's Gate 3 and Black Myth Wukong inadvertently timed exclusives on PlayStation when it didn't need to be. The hardware in that is just not for certain games. And certain devs have said because of Microsoft's parity clause, if it goes on the X, it has to be on the S in the same way. You can't add or subtract features from the game. Well, they broke that when it came to Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate, which won Game of the Year when it came out and is a huge RPG phenomenon. One of the features they believe in is seamless split-screen couch co-op. A feature that majority of most games don't really do nowadays, but Larian Studios was very adamant about it, and because of the parity clause, they couldn't get it out or working properly So that version of the game was held back until Microsoft caved. That feature was stripped from the Xbox S version, and then it came out. I don't know what the parameters were of Black Myth Wukong, but they said the same thing. Said it was due to hardware issues. I understand where Microsoft was going with the S to have a lower, more budget economic price to get people into gaming. You know, if you couldn't drop the 500, hey, we got you covered. We got you covered. But that didn't really last long. Starfield was a big, huge thing for them. They also had Hi-Fi Rush. Forza Motorsport came out, rebooting the series. Technically, they've taken it a la a platform and games of a service rather than another entry. It is digital only, if I remember correctly. But I will say one thing: this console generation is a few things Microsoft started to do that just does not sit well with me. Hence, why I tend to play more on PlayStation. I believe it was Redfall. Actually, no, I'm wrong. It was Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite was the start of Microsoft not putting the full game on disc and having it to where you had to still download. So what the fuck was the point in putting it on disc? I did not learn this until later on. When Sony went with PS5, they went with a double dual layer Blu-ray disc. Regular Blu-rays on PS3 had 25 gigabytes of storage. PS4s had 50. PS5s have 100. When making the Series X, Microsoft opted to stay and stick with the 50 gigabyte Blu-ray disc. So any game that exceeded that, rather than just putting multiple discs, they would just put one and be like, hey, you got to download the game with the rest of it. Which I still to this day hate. There's no point in that. Just buy it digitally. And I'm going to let you know right now, you purchase the digital game, you do not own it. Should your internet goes out, does not work properly, whatever, you are on a time frame of these consoles connecting. Check the servers for your quote unquote, and I did not like that. That went with Forza Motorsport and other titles. And a lot of now their initiative with their first party games, they just don't give physical versions of them at all. It comes out digitally and it comes out on Game Pass. They say buy it digitally or play it on Game Pass. That's just how they feel. And that was one thing that really, really I do not like, because the corporation that owns Xbox, it's pennies. It takes like $1 and some change to produce a Blu-ray disc. So I can only imagine maybe a little bit more, maybe 50 cents more for a double dual Blu-ray layer to make that, I could just be an old man yelling at clouds on an old form of technology where they say, hey, digital is everything. But hey, like I said, you don't own that game, you buy digital. With also the Bethesda acquisition, they also made the biggest gaming acquisition to date when they bought ABK, Activision Blizzard King. And it sent shockwaves throughout the gaming industry and brought a lot of eyes on Xbox. Most Xbox fans championed it because they felt, Call of Duty is going to be only on Xbox. Microsoft's going to take these games away from PlayStation, which they somewhat did, and they have later course corrected on that because the purchase of Bethesda was strictly to take Starfield away from them. But now Xbox has turned and changed their business strategy with now being more of a publisher rather than hardware focused. Game Pass subscriptions kind of plateaued. I believe the last time we heard anything was 37-ish million. And another thing that they've done that's a little controversial prior to this, just the disc digital thing, they have continuously raised the price on Game Pass. Game Pass initially came out, it was $10. Then it was 16, 17, 20, and now 30. They've broken up into different tiers based on how much you pay is what you get. You want all games day and date and Call of Duty, you have to have Game Pass Ultimate, and that is the 30. That does not sit well with a lot of customers, to the point where a lot of people canceled their Game Pass. So much so it crashed the website. And you have some Xbox diehard fans that say, hey, you get a lot for it. But to me, an adult who works, hobbies, and all that, it's just not. It'll be $360 a year, $30 a month of Game Pass. Yes, you chopped it up to a few games every month to equal that. But if you don't have the time to play like that, you're just handing them money. Game Pass to me is best for teenagers who could come home, do homework, and be on there up until they go to sleep and spend their weekends playing and trying out everything. And it goes from there. Treese, what is your opinion on Xbox and its Wonder Years?
Yeah, you kind of covered everything. I do want to make a note because I did did look it up. There were a number of developers complaining about supporting the Series S and their frustrations across 2021 to 2023. Some of these devs include ID Software, Doom creators, Gotham Knights dev, A Plague Tale, Baldur's Gate 3, Land, Dying Light, the people from Dying Light, and Studio Wildcard. It just says Arc. I don't know who those are, but they have quoted saying Siri S is a bottleneck. Memory limitations are the biggest issues. We wouldn't have a 30 frames per second limits if it weren't for the S. And yeah, it's quite documented. A lot of the complaints about supporting the S and was very, very much a affordable system, and it came with its limitations. And for whatever reason, they have continued on with the Series S up until finally having to be forced their hand to let it go, just because it was too much of a lesser than from the X. I will give credit where credit's would due, but I agree. Microsoft did not make a disc versus a digital version. Kudos to them, but making the S, I don't think was the answer to their cheaper version of their system. I think they should have just the X or something. It had to be more powerful. The S was a very, very limiting system for developers, and like I said, it's been documented from 2021 all the way to 2023. So that's only 2 years ago. This was continually complaining about the limitations. But as far as the Wonder Years, like I said, I bought no games. The games we did play were pretty old, were oldies but goodies. Just because the backwards capability of the Xbox was great. You could play any game, 360 game, whatever, and they kind of re-enhanced the 360 games. So yeah, I mean, the Wonder Years, I ain't really got much to say. It was just because I didn't play no games during this period on the Xbox, and the Xbox has just been collecting dust. I dust it off every now and then, but I do not cut that bitch on. And that's not to say I do think this was the better hardware at the end of the day, like I said earlier in the video. But it's just unfortunate, the business, the mind shift of Microsoft and Xbox changed. And that's not to say that the hardware is not good. It's just I didn't have a reason to turn the hardware on, unfortunately. And I think that's very unfortunate because this was a good piece of hardware, especially when you compare it to
Indeed.
the PS5 and everything. And like I said, the resume feature, chef's kiss. Sony better implement that in the next system. I don't know if they have to pay or if Xbox has that copyright or whatever, but I think that's a wonderful feature to have in a system, and I think that should become the standard for all systems. Xbox, they do have a custom of changing what we expect out of a system, from, its 360 days, even the first Xbox, having a hard drive and having embedded memory. I mean, Xbox, they do have a history of changing our expectations from the home console. But unfortunately, the expectation of the Game Pass and play our games anywhere, we don't care, it kind of hurt the Wonder Years on how I feel. Because like I said, I didn't turn the bitch on, unfortunately. And I know I'm probably gonna get some flack in the comments, but like I said, I'm stating here today, Xbox is the better hardware. It's unfortunate it didn't make a lot of the sales at the PS5 and milestones that it's reached. But I just think that's a consequence of the business plan that Xbox is going forward. They're not a game developer. They're not a first party developer. They're a game publisher. That's what they're heading. And my cousin did point out the changes and price changes of Xbox Game Pass, but I just think it's been unprofitable from the beginning. And Microsoft making all these acquisitions, they have big debt to pay off from what they pay for some of these companies. Some of these companies have not been worth the money they spent on it, unfortunately. And I think Game Pass prices going up is inevitable, especially as hardware and all the chips. And I think the next gen consoles are going to be even more expensive than the $700 $800 that they're priced at now for this current latest version of whatever these systems are right now. Yeah, so whatever. I can't speak on it because I didn't turn the system on, but that's just how I feel. And my cousin pretty much covered everything else in detail.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say, I will admit, I have bought games. I do play on my Series X from time to time. Majority of the time, it is I won't lie, it is majority of time something older that I probably missed, and it goes on sale, and I'll get
Mhm.
it. Like, all right, okay, I can play this, and that'll be it. Because majority of games, the games that I would probably want to buy on the Xbox, and we've stated it, and we're going to state it again. The Series X is a more powerful console on paper. It has the numbers, but due to how I want to buy and play some games, yes, we do game share. And we've stated many times before, we take turns and buy stuff. Some of those things, okay, I don't care to own physically, because majority of the time we'll play it, buy it, and get done with it. It's like, all right, cool, I'm done with this. But then there are other games that I do want to own physically, and Xbox has let that go. They have just said, hey, we're just not going to waste the money on that. It's just straight digital. I mean, and the numbers are there. That digital eclipses physical, but certain games, I am still a collector. To my cousin, she hears that word and it says, but hey, that's just what it is, and that is how it is. I do enjoy my Xbox. There are many 360 games. There are many Xbox One games I've
Yeah.
missed. I do play. I boot it up, and it is night and day how smooth it runs. And this is one thing I look forward to seeing Microsoft push more into this PC initiative, because there are old games on PC that are too old to play on modern technology, that you have to tinker around with settings or get mods in order for it to work properly. Where Xbox there was like, hey, he built a system to where you can boot up a 360 game on a Series X and it'll run as if it was made strictly for that. I know one clear example. I believe it was the One X or it's the Series X. I can't remember which one. That at a time they were offering like, hey, you buy it, you got like a free copy or whatever of Red Dead Redemption. Currently, when we're recording this, Red Dead Redemption has had a PS4 and now a PS5 and Switch 2 port. If memory serves me, and my cousin, she probably will double check this to fact check it to see if she can call me out on it. There is no Xbox One or Series X port or version of Red Dead. They take the 360 game and it has been improved dramatically just through the sheer nature of the hardware. What is the point in doing it? It's played at 60 frames. It's bumped up to true native. Reading the brochure, gotta let you know that they're like, yo, why waste the money on that? It is a great hardware. And then, like I said, boy, them controllers are like night and day compared to PlayStation. Night and fucking day. But hey, we all have our ups and downs, our quirks, and whatever. Like my cousin said, it's a piece of hardware. Xbox has done a lot this generation with the game increases
Eh.
of Oh, hold on, no. I wasn't saying like in a good way.
Oh.
I'm just saying just in general, from
I'm
the
about to
the
say.
constant increases to Game Pass, the hardware increase, not once but twice, and a possible third coming due to the RAM shortage, the tightening of the belt because that ABK deal, hey, baby, too much money was spent on that. But at the same time, quick resume, man. If you ain't got an Xbox, hey, well, shit, you can't really buy one now because they ain't cheap. But if you got one, hey, let me know how many games you bouncing back and forth. You hit something, you know what? I don't feel like shooting right now. Let's go to a RTS or let's go to a sports. That quick resume feature really game change. But if you want to look at Xbox as a whole, and please, like I said, keep the console war stuff, because once again, these companies, they don't know you. PlayStation makes billions. Microsoft has trillions. You are a number. But with all that, and like I said, with the increases of everything, cutting out physical games, the digital push, and Microsoft is real quick on tightening up and controlling their ecosystem real hard. I give Xbox 5-year thing. I give it a C minus. Now will say I understand why they have shifted their mindset so dramatically, and I kind of enjoy the fact that they're like, hey, we're multi-platform. Everything goes everywhere, including Halo. And I have to reiterate what my cousin has said. Xbox's problem is not hardware, even though they're a primary software company. Xbox has an identity problem, and they have a marketing problem. When I say marketing problem, they're not convincing the average consumer to purchase the hardware. You buy the hardware, you get them to buy the software, and Microsoft is just past that. They just don't care. I get it, the numbers need to keep upticking, but this could have been avoided in so many ways, even though Phil Spencer is famous for saying, or infamous, however you want to look at it, building great games will not shift people to our ecosystem. And I'm quoting him. This is what he said in a podcast. There's no universe where Starfield comes out and it's an 11 out of 10 and people sell their PlayStations and go to Xbox. That's horseshit. I'm going to call it like it is, because there was a universe where people got rid of their PS2s and went to 360. And in that same breath, there were people that went from 360 to PS4. And you know what did that? It was the game. These are game console. And Sony learned that from the PS3 to the 4. The PS3 was an over-engineered system. It did too fucking much that your average person that just wants to play a game or watch a Blu-ray, and Microsoft lost sight of that with chasing the casual market and then the entertainment industry and all that. You make great games, yes, that will shift the needle. That is what you're in the business for. That's like Ford saying, hey, if we just make good cars, people will buy them. That's not how that works. We need to do like, yo, you're here to make cars. Make good cars. I truly couldn't believe he said that shit. If you make the games, the gamers will come. But Microsoft has made their audience, and I will elaborate on that. And I'm part of it too, because I don't buy a lot of Xbox games because I'm like, hey, we'll go on Game Pass and I'll play it on Game Pass, check it out. All right, cool. I'll buy it on PlayStation. Don't like it. All right, delete it and I'll move on. I didn't spend any money. But Microsoft has taught their audience, hey, stay in Game Pass. We'll take care of it. And this can be fact checked as well. There has been reports that Xbox gamers do not buy or purchase a lot of games because they are conditioned to it'll come in Game Pass. Microsoft will spend their money and put it on Game Pass, and that will keep people in Game Pass, and they'll keep Microsoft breaking money in it. But I'm also going to reiterate this as well. Game Pass ain't profit, and I welcome, and I'm saying this, a PSA, I welcome anybody to debate or put in the comments, hey, what you think differently. When something's profitable, you don't keep raising the price on it. In the same generation, there's been multiple price increases. If you're making hand over fist and it's just truly so, then why the rush to, and you can go and say like, oh, it's so proper, they need to make more money, but you risk wringing your consumers dry. You want to keep milking, and Game Pass is not profit. It's not. The CEO of Activision, Bobby Kotick, he came out and said Game Pass is self-destructive, and I would never put Call of Duty on it because you're not going to make your money back. And in 2 years, they have not made their money back. They've lost $400 million plus. That's why Game Pass price goes up. Because in doing research for this, I totally forgot. When Game Pass came out, it was $10. It was $10 hairs. It's now $30. PlayStation raised the price of Plus, went from $60 a year, and then they diversified the portfolio because of Game Pass. What was it? Pony. I'm trying to be a pony, but I'm stating the facts. And that's what so many people get caught up in with these console wars and this brand loyalty. The facts. It's not about your feelings. I give Xbox a C. I mean, they showed off multiple times, and we do not have a clear launch date. When they did their developer direct earlier in the year, Fable was not there, and they said, oh, it got pushed to 26. It got pushed to 25 last year. Where's that game? They showed off State of Decay. We have yet to see any fruit of that labor. They have been very big and instrumental in showing off trailers of games that probably just started production or are nowhere near to any feature complete state, just in the name of trying to save face. So like I said, I see why they have shifted to where they are now, to game developer to publisher. I totally get that. That's where I stand for the 5-year anniversary. Chase, what do you feel?
Yeah, my cousin's point was well drawn out. So
How dare
I've
you?
stated I've stated how I felt. I've been consistent. I have not turned the system on, and know how long. And there was no Xbox Series X generation game that I bought for the whole generation because of Game Pass and my cousin having Game Pass and blah 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 blah. Listen, my letter grade at the end of the day is a C minus, and the only thing that's keeping it above being a failing grade is because of the resume feature. It was just so fucking great and so fucking good. I think that needs to be the standard across the board of all games, next gen consoles. The fact that the hardware was good, like Xbox did not cheap out on the Series X hardware. Now the S, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. And unfortunately, what brings it down is to the mind shift. I think my cousin is just forgetting that, listen, Xbox have made a foundation on the fact that we don't care about hardware. Not saying we're going to skimp out on hardware, but we don't care about the sale of our hardware. What we want ultimately is you to be in our fucking ecosystem. If we don't care how you're in our ecosystem, whether that's your smart TV, your cell phone, your tablet. We don't care. If you got an Xbox controller, play our shit anyway. We don't care. And I think a lot of things from that decision is still hasn't played out yet. Like I said in the past video, the cost of RAM and all of that is going to drive up the next generation, and even this generation's consoles up. I mean, they're at $800 and 750. That's very expensive. To where if you buy Game Pass and you do the Play Anywhere thing that Microsoft has, a lower barrier of entry for somebody to get into. And I think that is their ultimate foundation going forward. And that hasn't been played out yet. And, they have competition in that outlet now with Steam and its hardware and its iOS on everything. And, we'll see who is the ultimate winner at the end of the day between those two companies. So I just feel like it's a C minus, but it's a lot of things that hasn't really panned out yet and probably won't pan out until like the next 5 years, honestly. So I think we'll have to kind of revisit some of the decisions they made in this generation in the next 5 years. So but I gotta give them a barely scaping by grade, and that's like I said, because of the hardware, it's very much future proof, and they did do a lot of good things. Like I said, where PS5 inconvenienced me, Xbox kind of went out of their way with 360 games, bringing them up, and revamping them, making them run
Hmm.
smooth. They spent a lot of
Hmm.
time and effort, and I know that it is so easy to shit on Microsoft and some of the decisions they made, and with the Game Pass, a lot of people don't agree. But honestly, in 5 years, we could look back on these decisions and we could say Xbox, Microsoft, whatever the fuck you want to classify. They made the ultimate chess move while everybody was playing checkers. And whereas Sony is just now, they don't believe in that Play Anywhere shit. I mean, unless you buy the little portable shit that they give you, they don't want you playing their shit on anything. So we can look back in 5 years and say, yo, Microsoft made a future move while we didn't even realize it. And where so many people has been shitting on the decision and what they're doing, they could look like geniuses. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the fact. I'm not predicting the future because at the end of the day, I could give a fuck. But I'm just saying, realistically, a lot of the decisions that they made 5 years ago when they made this generation, could pan out for them in the end in 5 years. But it's just, we're not at that point yet. And like I said, Steam is in the picture now. So we'll see all that. Yeah, I'm going to go with a C minus for all the reasons why I said I haven't cut it on. They abandoned first party games and all that. Listen, as I say that last point, there are still a lot of questions about how Microsoft is going to treat Xbox going forward. Like we said, they're calling the loan due. They want their shit to go back in the black. They're not going to continue on in the red. That's why Game Pass has gotten price increase. The system, the hardware has gotten price increase. And honestly, Game Pass could get another one. Honestly, if RAM and stuff and the hardware gets very more expensive, they go like, hey, well, if we add another $10, $40 per month, my cousin predicted $50 per month. That could still look like a deal, as crazy as that sounds today. So I'm gonna go with a C minus. Like I said, there's still a lot of things that could still play out and all that could eventually make their score go up to an A. Honestly, where I feel like Sony can't do anything with the PS5 as what they're sitting right now to improve. Where Xbox, honestly, it could improve theoretically. So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm going with a C minus after 5 years and how things sit right now. Like I said, we can come back to this video in 5 years and look back and see if they actually, made some magic. But I feel like Xbox is a game publisher now. They're really trying to get away from hardware. Don't believe nothing that word salad they saying. I think the next system they bring out for next gen is going to be the last, and they're just going to go straight play our shit anywhere on anything. And they got all the publishing people developers they bought. I feel like that they had 10-year contracts for Call of Duty and all that, and once that's over, Microsoft about to bully some people, like I said. So where their profit margins are right now, It could get crazy in 5 years, especially when that contract is over and they start manhandling Nintendo and, Sony, and I feel like they gonna somehow manhandle Steam, and my cousin doesn't agree, but yeah, C minus.
Yeah, you make an absolute good point. That is true. Microsoft has the funds to truly turn things around, but they're a little at the point of too little, too late. They don't care about competing on that front. Even though the success of the 360 is largely because Microsoft had the funds to eat the
Yeah,
costs of the
it's
repairs and everything else.
yeah, the
Because
red
they are
ring.
I'm gonna break it down to you before we move on to our last piece. Xbox, if they truly and wanted to, okay, really shit. If they took the 70 billion and went to every studio and said, "Hey, look here, we gonna give each one of y'all 3 billion as a war chest. Do what you need to do, but make it great. Instead of 3 years, you need 5. Go ahead, but hey, the longer you take to make this, the better I need this to be." They get their
Well,
even the heart. No, no, no. And the reason why I say is because they bought all those studios. And before Microsoft purchased those studios, they were bought because of the skill in the games
yeah,
that they
yeah.
made. If they were really to go in and quote unquote, as Wasona say, oh, they nurture. If they were to go and do that, they could really turn the tables. And then also, too, what you have stated before, numerous videos, when that Call of Duty contract ends, I do look forward to seeing how the landscape goes.
God bless
I
Sony
I
and
I I
Nintendo.
I look forward to see Sony like, so how you doing? Oh, excuse you? No, 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 Sony, don't get humble with me. I want that same attitude you had 14 years ago. That cocky slyness. Yeah, yeah, bring that to the table. I can really wholeheartedly believe that to the fullest. They could turn things around, but they have moved past that. Business first, games second. And we've talked about this as well. PlayStation
Eh,
is games first and kind of business second because
alright, pony
Sony
stuff.
no, 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 no. The reason why I said it, and you said this, we talked about this. Sony needs PlayStation to be profitable, and when it brings in a
Oh,
good
yeah,
chunk of its
yeah,
money.
yeah,
Microsoft don't need to rely on Xbox. Xbox relies on Microsoft. That's how that
yeah,
rolls around.
daddy's money.
Daddy's money. Nepo baby. Nepotism baby. That's the quickest way to break that down. But hey, at the end of the day, you can take our comments, run with it, feel some type of way. But like I said, these corporations don't know you. I'm not entitled to give a positive outspin on this plastic box that I play my entertainment on. I don't know no one at Microsoft.
And
And
I spent my
Microsoft don't
money
know
on
me.
it, so
And I bought my money. Freedom of speech, First Amendment. I feel it has been lackluster. I will give them their, like my cousin said, the quick resume. I'll give it even another. The hardware to put Gears of War 3 with its frame rate boosted, HDR enabled, and it looks sharp and crisp, better than what it did originally. And it's all done. Hey, that's nice. Because I'm an old guy. I do like to go back and play older games. Are You Not Entertained podcast? Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell so you'll never miss our next hot take. Until next time, are you not entertained?